Hello, and welcome to the Horror Screams Video Vault podcast. Yes, we're part of the Horror Screams Video Vault website, and this is episode 26 of our podcast. Welcome, and it's a seasonal one, which we're kind of honouring in a way with the theme of tonight's episode. And we're joined, as ever, by Sarah. Hello, Sarah. How's it going?
Hello, it's all going good, thanks. I'm struggling to get into the festive spirit, but it is nearly Christmas, so I have to start thinking about it.
Yeah. Have you got your presents sorted out? Got the tree? Oh, you have got the tree up, right? I'm sure I've heard that you've got the tree up.
Yeah, and that was something I wasn't really. I was like, oh, do we have to put the tree up this year? And I really wasn't feeling motivated. But the other half was like, well, we can't have Christmas without the Christmas tree, and he's done it himself, and that actually has made me feel a little bit more ready for it. And I've got all my presents and everything. I just need to get into the Christmas spirit.
Oh, that's easy. You just need to watch a lot of fluffy old Christmassy films.
Yeah,
It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh yeah.
Although that's quite depressing. That's there's a few though. Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I love that.
I know someone. Oh, sorry.
You know someone?
I do know someone. Yes.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
This is a revelation.
I know someone. Well, I don't know her anymore, but she used to work with me, and she was so disturbed and frightened. It's a phobia for her of the Muppets that even hearing the Muppet Show theme tune made her really on edge, which the boss used to do over the speakers and stuff now and again just to piss her off. And so for her, Muppet Christmas Carol was like the ultimate disturbing film because she had such a Muppet phobia. She found them really. They made her feel sick. I think she actually vomited once because she saw Muppets or whatever.
Oh my God. Was it actually just the Muppets or any kind of puppet? So like anything in like Labyrinth or Sesame Street also set her off?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I think from memory, it was all puppets because, without thinking, because in my head, I'd always go, she hates the Muppets. But I think if I ever mentioned anything like Labyrinth or Dark Crystal or something, she'd be like, oh, don't even talk about it. It was genuine.
I'm going to vomit.
Phobia. Yeah.
Wow, that is extreme. How can you be scared of the Muppets, man? Gonzo.
I think I asked her like if there was any kind of trigger for it.
Yeah,
obviously without wishing to open up a terrifying door of childhood trauma. But I don't think there was. I think maybe I've forgotten. But I think it's just something that she developed. Which,
it must have been some kind of childhood trauma that she's blocked out. I remember I had a friend who was frightened of clowns, and he told me the reason why was because when he was a kid, he went to a kids' party at McDonald's, and Ronald McDonald fell on him.
Oh, yeesh.
So, something like that could have happened to the Muppet lady, and yeah.
Yeah, like a Muppety thing that happened at like her 4th birthday party or something. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And then, I mean, anything can be creepy, right? So
sure.
I'm afraid of things that are ridiculous to other people, but yeah, it does make a lot of sense. But the idea is interesting, like the idea that someone would watch Muppet Christmas Carol and for them it would be the most disturbing thing that they could probably think of is kind of interesting.
Yeah. She'd be happier with watching like some of the other crazier like movies like Silent Night, Deadly Night, which I think is what we did last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, geez, a year ago.
Bet she'd probably be happier with them. There is quite a lot of cool zombie Christmas movies out. So I should get stuck in and start watching some of them. I've got a few of them. Oh, obviously Anna and the Apocalypse.
Anna and the Apocalypse is great. Yeah, the horror genre is pretty good, isn't it, for Christmas films? And new ones come out every year. I noticed Shudder is pushing a couple. One is called The Advent Calendar, I think, on Shudder.
I started watching that. I have started watching it, but then I think I got sidetracked and had to stop, and I think I only got about half an hour into it. But yeah, it looks kind of cool and creepy. I think it's French.
I was quite interested in that, and it's another thing, because you think, because I've stayed away from Shudder for a while, only because I just don't have time to, to fit it in. Not that I'm being stingy and saying, $4.99 a month or whatever it is. But yeah, I wouldn't mind going back to Shudder and catching up on a few things, and including that maybe.
Yeah,
French horror can be really good.
Yeah, I will carry on with that. But as we're talking about Shudder, guess what, Stephen?
What's that?
I recently seen
No.
I have managed to acquire myself Shudder back momentarily.
Nice. Good old Shudder. We have given
Yes.
Shudder a lot of publicity over the years.
And it's going to get more because I finally watched Creepshow season 3. Hooray!
All of it? Is it over? Is it
All
already
of it.
happened?
Yep.
Wow.
Unfortunately, they're all like short. Well, they're only about 6 or 7 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
And they're only about half an hour to 45 minutes long. But yeah, no, I mean the series came out in September, so you can click on and binge watch it straight away, and it was really good. It didn't have as many amazing standout episodes as season 2 did, because I mean they can't beat the first episode of season 2, which was the Evil Dead-esque episode with
Yes.
Ted Raimi and stuff that I
Yep.
absolutely went crazy over. It was fabulous. They haven't been able to top that, but I wasn't expecting them to. They kind of peaked there, but there was some really good episodes. Again, they do a really good mixture of different types of monsters and creepy things. There was some kind of like a singer that's a weird insect thing. She turns into this crazy insect, which is cool. I think one of my favorite ones was the episode where they had a couple that owned a prop museum, and they had they basically had all these really cool props from all the old horror movies, like from Phantasm, Evil Dead, all that kind of stuff. They had like or skeletons and corpses from Return of the Living Dead and stuff like that, and this cool story played out with that. That was pretty cool.
Nice.
But yeah, it was good. That was over and done with very quickly. But it's always good to see. Creepshow is one of my favourite things. I would definitely have it up there, and one of my all-time favourite TV series, along with Ash versus Evil Dead and Walking Dead.
Nice. Yeah, it's really fun, isn't it? And the original movie especially, is great.
I even like the
favourite.
sequel. I mean,
The second one's good. Yeah, the second one with the raft and the wooden Indian guy and the hitchhiker. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are quite fun, and ones that we watched loads on VHS back in the day. Is there many, like, obviously previous seasons have had Ted Raimis and people like that. Is there many people like that show up as guest stars or guest directors?
I'm not remembering an awful lot of people standing out, to be fair. I'm looking through it quickly just to see if I've forgotten anyone. But no, I'm not recalling any like major like horror stars, and they've had Tobin Bell and stuff in the first.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there is someone that pops up in here, but it's not coming to my head, I'm afraid.
No, fair enough. Well, it's good to know. I presume it will go on and on, right? Because Shudder, it must be one of their kind of prime things that they do.
Yes.
And they seem to be growing generally, don't they? Cool. Yeah, we'll give that a look. Did you say there was a standout episode, or is more that this was just a good bunch?
The horror prop one was my favourite standout one. That was really good.
Cool.
That was a lot of fun. And the Queen Bee one with the crazy singer turning into a weird insect thing, that was cool.
Do you think they'll do a Christmas special, or I guess it's too late for that?
Yeah, I think they probably... Or we'll have to keep an eye on Shudder just to find out, to be fair, because they did sneak one in last year.
That was really good. I like that one.
I'm definitely going to keep an eye. Yeah, it was really funny. Yeah, hopefully they'll do something similar to that.
Nice. Creepshow now on season 3, right? Yeah,
season
now on Shudder.
3.
I'll catch up with that. Yeah, what else have you been watching?
Also, I finally watched Doctor Sleep.
Oh, nice.
I found it, I think it was on Prime, or was it Disney Plus? No, it was Prime, I think, because they got the director's cut on there as well.
Yes.
So having never seen the theatrical release, I went straight in and watched the director's cut. And I can't believe I left it. It's another one that I've left really, really late because loads of other people have watched it and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you haven't seen it yet. But I was on a bit of a Mike Flanagan binge after Midnight Mass and enjoying everything else of his. So I was like, yeah, I really need to get on and watch this one. And I was very pleasantly surprised. I mean, I love Ewan McGregor as an actor anyway.
Yeah.
So it's good to see him up there. He's great as Dan. But I think what I really, really appreciated was the way they made the hotel look. from the original movie, and the way they cast the characters as well. I thought the lady that played Wendy Torrance was really good. You know, you think the original actress, what was her name? Shelley
Duvall, yeah.
That's it. You know, she's quite a unique looking person, and you'd think it would be hard for them to try and match, but I thought they did a really good job with the lady that they chose.
Yeah.
And they had Henry Thomas as Jack, bartender.
Yeah.
I just thought it was good. It was long, but it had a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like Doctor Sleep, but I haven't seen the director's cut. I just saw it in the cinema where I think it was still long, and I think
I think it's in, like, the director's cut is only 20 odd minutes longer.
Wow, yeah. That's cool though. I mean, it is Flanagan stuff is very much it's very detailed, isn't it? It's very character driven, and it's very like a novel, really. That's been brought to the screen. In this case, literally, it was obviously based on the Doctor Sleep novel. So it makes sense that he'd have more stuff that is worth including rather than just shoving in extra stuff for the sake of it. So I must check that out. Yeah, the recreation of the Overlook is spectacular. It's a beautiful recreation of that.
Yeah, and the maze.
Yeah, the maze. Yeah, incredible detail, really good. And the movie has such a tough job because it's obviously the Stephen King book of Doctor Sleep is a sequel to the Stephen King book of The Shining, which is quite different, especially in terms of the ending of The Shining to the movie. So this somehow had to please the people that loved the film of The Shining and follow on from the ending of that, and also do the same for the King novel, which has a totally different ending and quite a different kind of tone. And it did it really well. I think it really covers both bases. I seem to remember it not being much of a hit at the time, but I think Doctor Sleep will be one of those things that kind of grows over time, and more people will rate it as one of the better horror films of like the recent few years. Yeah, it's really good, really well cast. I do like Ewan McGregor too. Yeah.
Yep. And the young girl that plays Abra, she's really good.
Yeah, tough role. Yeah, she's superb, and so is what's she called? Rose the Hat. Is that her name?
Yeah, the character. Yeah,
Rebecca
Ferguson.
Yes.
Yeah, she's really good.
My probably unhealthy love of The Greatest Showman means that I'm a big Rebecca Ferguson fan because she's a big part of that. Don't tell anyone.
Okay, I won't. Don't tell anyone that I've never seen that.
That's shocking. That's really shocking, actually.
Both really shocking. You love it. I've never seen it.
Please don't watch it, because if you hate it, it would break my heart. Which some people do. They do actually hate it. Some people.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's probably not my cup of tea, but you know, some musicals surprise me. But it does have Hugh Jackman in it, doesn't it? So
I have to see. Yes, if you're a Hugh Jackman fan, which obviously you are because you like Van Helsing. If you, he's I mean, he is. There's lots of people in The Great Showman, but he is sensational in that, and he is in real life, and he's done stage stuff. He's a proper song and dance man, as well as being a very good actor. And I think actually him alone is enough to sway The Greatest Showman for you in a way that probably without him it wouldn't. So, yeah.
Okay, well that would be my only thing that would make me watch it.
Yeah. Now I'm a bit worried that you'll watch it and then but no, that's okay. No, I can do it. Can be strong with this. It's a horror podcast, of course, and
true.
Separate
we should
musical podcasts that are going to have to do will be another thing. What else have you watched?
Next week.
Yes. The all singing. There are enough horror musicals to warrant a musical episode. So I think that is going to happen.
We need to do one. Yes, for sure. Absolutely. But that's kind of it for recently seen. But I have been venturing out of the house again this month.
Good God.
I know, twice in 1 year.
Honestly, twice in a year. Jesus. Someone's living it up.
I know. I had to do it while I still can.
Exactly.
So I went out to another gig. Hooray! Just in our local city of Norwich, to the university, which is a popular venue for most bands that travel to Norwich. There's not very many places to play, so they often pop to the university. But yes, I finally got to see Ailstorm Glory Hammer on their UK tour. They did an 11-date tour beginning, I think it started end of November. I saw them on the 9th, so they had another 2 dates, and then that was the end of the show. So we kind of saw them towards the end, heard lots of good things about the previous shows that have been going on. There's been lots of stuff that's been happening with a couple of the bands. One of the support bands, Aether Realm, pulled out, so they got replaced by a kind of a band that was not my cup of tea, but they're called the Bootyard Bandits, and they're a cowboy metal band from England. Weird. Yeah,
Wow.
I wasn't too sure about them. I was a bit like, not my kind of cup of tea. Country and Western is country and Western. You can't just say it's metal, and yeah, not so great. But yeah, Glory Hammer were fantastic. I'd never seen them before, but in the summer they'd played Bloodstock, and they'd kind of spontaneously sacked their singer straight after Bloodstock, which caused a bit of uproar. But they replaced him very quickly, and they brought out their new guy, who's a Greek guy or Cypriot guy called Sozos Michael, and he was fantastic. He was a great replacement for the old singer. Same, like very similar vocal range and stuff like that. And you know, they really got their shit together and put on a really great show. Fantastic. And Ailstorm were pirate metal at their best. Always fantastic. I've seen them about 3 or 4 times now, but they released their album, The Curse of the Crystal Coconut, just before, well, they recorded it just before COVID happened, and unfortunately it kind of got released in the middle of COVID. So they had to cancel all of the tour dates they had planned to promote the album and stuff. So this was the first time they'd actually be able to get out and play tracks from the album. So, you know, we were all itching. I was like, oh my God, I want to hear them play this song, this song, this song, and this song from the album. And they did. It's like they read my mind, played my favourite songs, and yeah, they're just great fun. And it was a really good night.
Nice. I like Ailstorm. I only know them from not the recent stuff, I don't think, but from the albums you've loaned me over the years. They're great fun, and I can imagine that it really proper comes to life on the stage.
It does. And they know all the songs that people want to hear as well.
Is Drink one of them? Drink, that is called Drink, isn't it? Yes, which has got the best chorus of all time.
Yeah, when you say that, a lot of them have very similar sing-along choruses and stuff.
Wenches and Mead.
They didn't play that one this time, but they played Nancy the Tavern Wench, a couple of the old favourites. Fucked with an Anchor was always going to be the last song they play. That's
so good. Yeah. Fantastic. They have great cover art on the CDs and stuff as well, don't they?
They do, yeah.
The designs are great. Do you have you do have t-shirts and stuff from them, right?
Yes, I do.
Nice.
I have the entry-level party metal t-shirt. It's one of my favourite slogans.
Do you have pin badge? Do you collect pin badges from gigs? That was always a thing for me in the old days when I'd go to things like that.
It's not so much these days. I mean, I unfortunately kind of avoided the merch for the Ailstorm gig because running a little bit low on money, and the tickets themselves for the gig were pretty steep, to be fair. So the t-shirts were like 30 quid.
Whoa! Oh, that's beyond the t-shirt budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Of any kind.
They had this amazing, really nice red hoodie, and on the back it said something about stealing metal piracy and stuff. I was like, that's really cool. Looked at it, it was 50 quid.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh,
yeah, I totally get it, because they've presumably had a tough year. But
they have, but so have I. So sorry, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's, again, it's a mental thing. Like we're used to paying a bit more at things like this for a t-shirt, and it's nice for the memento. But there's a cut off, and £50 for a hoodie is that. That's that's a shame.
I'm hoping I can grab it online another time when I've saved some more pennies.
Yeah, that's right.
But that is all from me. What have you been up to, Stephen?
That sounds grand. So the last time I recorded in November, I've seen a few things. I haven't been up to a huge amount, really. I've been to the cinema a couple of times because they're still open. Things generally actually are still open, which is good, and hopefully will stay that way. I've seen a couple of. I saw one thing at the cinema which I never imagined I would go to see, and no, it's
Mm.
not. It's not a musical in this case. Although Cats, if you ever get a chance to watch the musical of Cats, the film version, that's totally bonkers.
What, the
And
new one?
the one with James Corden and Judi Dench and people like that, it's totally mad.
Oh God.
I saw it. It was out a year or so, maybe 2 years ago, but it stayed with me because it's genuinely weird and perverse. You can't believe that anyone greenlit the way it's made. They've all got these weird tails that look like erections. It's just totally mad. Yeah, but that's obviously by the by. But yes, in the cinema, I went to see Spencer because it was recommended to me by someone that I kind of trust.
Spencer, is that the thing about the royals?
Yes.
Do you want to know a fact about that film?
I do, yes.
It was filmed in the church where my parents live, in the little village of Shropham where my parents live.
Wow, where is Shropham again? That's not far.
It's not far away. It's near Thetford.
Yes, that makes sense.
About half an hour away.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing, man. I didn't know. I wasn't sure. Like, I was checking the end bit, and I'm sure it probably did say Shropham, but I'd totally forgotten where
Possibly
that was.
not, but yeah, they couldn't actually do the actual filming at Sandringham. So Shropham, they did a big recce mission around the county and stuff to find a place that looks like it. And our church, or the place, Shropham's church, is the one that fit the bill.
So that's where you grew up then?
It was. We moved there when I was a young'un, yes.
Yes. Wow, man. Well, get this right. So Spencer, I don't have any interest in the royals or things like that, but I was told that this is something quite different, and it really is. And it's a really fantastic film, and it very much is in the bag of the stuff that we talk about on this podcast. Strangely enough, it's a proper kind of gothic thing, really. If you don't know, this is about basically 3 days that Princess Diana spent at Sandringham in the early 90s. So it's just set over this kind of long weekend at Christmas. It starts on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fictionalized version of stuff that probably went down to a degree, so it shows her as being extremely unhappy, as being self-harming, and being totally miserable, fitting into this very rigid, regimented lifestyle where, obviously she's hounded by the press, and the royals have their ancient traditions, and she has to be wearing a certain dress at a certain time of day, which is all dictated to her. So that's a big part of it, is Princess Diana really just cracking up over the course of the weekend. But the atmosphere is really something else. Like, it feels like The Shining, we mentioned a minute ago, but parts of it feel like The Shining, including some scenes in these huge kitchens at Sandringham. And the ghost of Anne Boleyn haunts her. There's a scarecrow in the field that feels like something out of a kind of 1970s folk horror film. And it's really eerie. It's perpetually overcast. So, like you said, they filmed it in Norfolk, which obviously is where it's set. And you can tell it's shot in Norfolk, and it's a very eerie mood. And the royal family, apart from her, and apart from her two sons, the rest of the royal family are portrayed as incredibly frosty. The Queen is particularly unsympathetic in this. She's a very cold, alienating figure. So it's a really fascinating watch. Kristen Stewart is Princess Diana, and Kirsten Stewart. I've called her Kristen. She's Kirsten Stewart, isn't she?
No, it's Kristen Stewart.
Kristen Stewart. Whew.
Yeah.
Kristen, yeah. She's possibly in the category of, lover or hater actresses, but she's actually very talented, and she's done some interesting things. And in this, she's very good. And it's a tough job to play Princess Diana, because you run the risk of it just being a kind of impersonation, I guess, of such a well-known figure. But she's really good, and it's very sympathetic to Diana, and it does make you think much more about, well, hey, this probably was her existence, marrying into this family. Prince Charles comes off as particularly cold as well. So yeah, if you want to, whether you have an interest in this stuff, in these particular people or not, I think is irrelevant, because it's a proper, almost a ghost story. Well, it kind of genuinely is a ghost story at different points, but it's almost a horror film. And the director that made it did an interesting film called Jackie, which was about the few days in Jackie Kennedy's life after President Kennedy got shot. and that had a similar mood where it was part true story, but also so kind of unsettling that it became something else. So yeah, I really liked Spencer. I thought that was quite something.
Cool.
And the North, where we live in Norfolk, the Sandringham connection, etc., added something else to it as well. But yeah, that was cool, man. I do recommend that. Surprisingly, you never know, you see these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I will tell my mum. She's desperate to see it, so
yeah,
I'll say it's been highly recommended.
Yeah, and I think I'd love to hear what people who are really, and who did follow the royals and stuff, how they feel about it, because it's an interesting portrait of the family, but it's a particularly thoughtful and kind of makes you think, oh wow, yeah, about Princess Diana especially, and what she would have gone through. And we only know her from the public image and all of that stuff, but to see her at her most vulnerable in this and think, this is probably how it went down, is particularly interesting, especially in light of what happened to her in the end. So yeah, that was a cool surprise.
Nice.
Other stuff I've seen, I guess, is more in my conventional kind of watching, which is to say silly. So I watched Willy's Wonderland, which
yay!
You've seen this, right, Sarah?
Yeah, I watched it a few months ago.
Yes, I knew it. Which is if anyone doesn't know, which is the Nicolas Cage film where it's all about this kind of disgraced old theme park, which was amusingly founded and ran by a serial killer who then employed a bunch of nutters so that they could kill families in the super happy fun room, and their kind of spirits or their energies got trapped inside the animatronic characters at the theme park. It's totally mad, isn't it? I mean, it's great fun.
Bonkers.
I have to say, I think we had this chat when I hadn't seen it, but it's definitely more fun than the Banana Splits movie.
Splits. Oh, I'm glad you agree, because you really, really loved that movie, and I felt a little bit bad for saying that I wasn't quite as much of a fan as you were. But yeah, I totally agree that Willy's Wonderland, it's very similar.
Yes,
to the Banana Splits
actually,
thing. Well, I suppose it doesn't have the annoying small children. It has slightly older children, and it has Nicolas Cage just being the crazy man that he is, and he says nothing, which is kind of amusing in itself. No dialogue whatsoever.
Yeah, it's mostly him. It's him being kind of moping about, and him kind of beating the shit out of these animatronic robots every 5 minutes, which is
pretty cool ways.
Yeah, with the urinal and everything. Yeah. So it has more energy than I think the Banana Splits movie. I did have a lot of fun with that, but I think there were times where it seemed to be a bit padded and the idea seemed to be a bit one note, which I guess it is in this as well. But this one does move more. It's got more going on. It's got a bunch of kind of slasher movie style characters in it that are there to get killed. But I just like it went there with the bad taste stuff. So I love the fact that it has a brief flashback where it shows the kids and these robots that say things like that they're going to eat their eyes out, and they were great. And the fact that Cage is doing an entirely physical performance is quite cool. Actually, it doesn't happen very often for
he's
a big star. Yeah, he's a big star that makes he now and again makes a really serious film where he's very, very good in it. And then he fills up the rest of the time making low budget stuff or wacky stuff where he's just kind of doing the Cage thing.
Sure.
But yeah, I was well on board with Willy's Wonderland. It was great fun. Elsewhere, I saw Critters Attack, which is the most recent Critters film, which I thought was terrible, which is, even though it's got Dee Wallace in it as a kind of critter bounty hunter, it's not very good. It's sappy. It kind of wants to be, it's a bit sentimental about its kid characters, and the critters are big. They're too big. They're not the little kind of pointy hedgehoggy things from the old ones. They're oversized. They're still puppets, which is good. They did CGI them.
Oh, good.
Or at least mostly they're not CGI. But yeah, I thought Critters Attack was
quite big anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought it was a bit rubbish actually, and it was trying too hard to be funny, and like I said, at some points it really gets all sugary sweet with its characters, which doesn't really wash if
not for a Critters movie.
Nah, so that's disappointing. I know there was a Critters TV series which I haven't seen, which came out around the same time as Critters Attack, which is the movie, and the two things, as far as I know, are totally separate. So I don't know if the rights for certain aspects are owned by a different company or something, but as far as Critters Attack goes, yeah, didn't like it really.
Give that one a miss.
Bit of an ordeal. We're talking about ghost stories later, but I saw a really good one called The Night House, which, funnily enough, is on Disney Plus. It had a small cinema release, and then very soon after went to Disney Plus, like a lot of things actually. If they're either owned by Disney or 20th Century Fox. Lighthouse is really good. I definitely recommend it. It's by David Bruckner, David Bruckner. I think he directed that really good spooky British film, The Ritual.
Oh God, I love that film.
Yes, yeah, I thought you'd seen it. The Ritual's great, and he co-directed Southbound. I think the anthology movie, which
I love that as well.
Good. Yeah, well, The Night House is really good too. I suppose it does have, because I remember The Ritual being incredibly eerie. And The Night House is too. It has a great performance by Rebecca Hall, who kind of is the whole show really. She's a woman. Her husband's recently committed suicide, and it's quite a mystery. There was no real signs of why he would do that, and she seems to be haunted either by him or by something else. So it is a ghost story, but it's very underplayed. It's very eerie without like lots of shocks or jump scares and stuff. She's great. She's actually incredible in it. And when it unravels and you realize where it's heading, it's actually quite heartbreaking. You know, it's got a twist, I guess not a big twist, but a sort of twist that makes total sense of what you've just watched. So yeah, The Night House, nice and short, an hour and a half or so, I thought was really, really good. Probably one of those little gems that hopefully people will discover on Disney Plus. Probably, you know, it came out in the cinema briefly, but it's not like it would have been very good at the cinema, but it doesn't necessarily need to be seen on the big screen. It works really well on TV. So yeah, The Night House, really good. Like that one. Otherwise, The Columnist is, I think it's Dutch. Forgive me, Dutch people, if it's not. The Columnist was a Fright Fest, probably last year, I think. And it's now on Prime, I believe, or Sky, or one of those things. There's about 26 different places where it would have been. Jesus. It's really bizarre now, isn't it? We've got like 400 different ways of watching films.
Yeah, exactly. And it all kind of blurs into one. You're like, did I watch that on that or that or that? And just saying Disney Plus, you're just like, why am I saying Disney? Just doesn't seem to be, you know, horror, Disney.
Well, it's ridiculous. When you look at Disney Plus, it's bonkers. You know, how far off from Disney Plus saying, well, yes, we've acquired the rights to Cannibal Holocaust, so you can watch it straight after Frozen 2.
That would not surprise me. Yeah.
Because they own so much. Because they own 20th Century Fox and other things as well. They're shilling out all this stuff for your Disney Plus membership when you should be watching The Little Mermaid. Quite bizarre. But yeah, The Columnist is quite fun. It's a bit like, I suppose, it reminded me a bit of do you remember the Falling Down with Michael Douglas, the 90s film?
Oh God, yeah.
In a weird way, I mean, it's totally different to that, but in a weird way, it's a bit like that. But he's obviously pissed off at like Los Angeles and the noise and being served in a fast food restaurant. All that stuff makes him go over the edge. But in The Columnist, this woman who is unsurprisingly a columnist in a magazine, she's tipped over the edge by internet trolls. So she's a very public figure, and she has these awful, mostly middle-aged white men that, you know, regularly insult her or call her fat online and things like that. And it tips her over the edge. She goes on a rampage and kills them.
Oh, excellent!
And it's kind of a black comedy with obviously a very serious message about idiots that do things like that. And it does, I suppose, it does become serious at times, but ultimately it's a dark comedy. She's fantastic. I genuinely can't remember the actress' name, but she's great. And it is obviously very much a film for now with Twitter and other social media that it portrays quite convincingly and quite, annoyingly, because we can recognize these people really easily. So The Columnist is really good. It's, again, really short. It's in an hour and 20. And it's extremely well played. But yeah, for some, Falling Down is kind of what it reminded me of, but obviously with a gender switch and also a film of now rather than, in that case, a film of the 90s, which was the driving force. And finally, Chucky, the TV series.
Yay!
Which is doing the rounds in the UK. It's doing the rounds on Sky. I think it showed on the Sci-Fi Channel in America. This is an 8-part series, and it's by Don Mancini, who has been on board with Chucky from the beginning. And he's the guy that, for me, fabulously rescued it from becoming almost this kind of very commercial, very popular, but a little bit repetitive franchise, and did mad things with it, like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. And then did more sequels, Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky were the two most recent sequels. Then there was a remake by totally different people, which made Chucky a much more up-to-date kind of Android controlled thing. And this is him again. So this does eventually follows up on his most recent sequels, although it explains the events, so you don't need to have watched Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky. And it's really quite good. It's got Brad Dourif back as the voice of Chucky.
Yay!
Which is great, because he didn't do the voice in the remake, because they did something different. Eventually, it's got Jennifer Tilly back as sort of Tiffany, but you have to watch to find out. So I've watched the first 5 episodes, and Jennifer Tilly has just come into it. It's got Fiona Dourif, who was the star of, is Brad's daughter, who was the star of Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky. In kind of an extraordinary role as well. She's basically playing the character her dad played before he got transferred into the doll in the flashback scenes, and then something else later on. So it's really quite bizarre, but it's also got quite a nice. The main lead is like a teenage boy, and it's quite a nicely portrayed and unpatronizing portrait of an unusually lead character. He's a gay teenage boy, and it's also got an awful kind of popular girl that you want to get killed, but has more depth than you think she will have, and it's fun. It's kind of gory. I read an article that says they're allowed to say fuck 10 times an episode, so it's got some swearing in it.
Nice, yeah.
Although interestingly, they bleep the C word in one episode, which unfortunately ruins a great line, because it's aimed at that awful popular girl that you hate so much. And it does ruin a great line, but I guess that's a bridge too far for them. But you do get to see people being stabbed many times to death, so that's okay. Yeah, Chucky's good. I've got 3 episodes to go. Apparently the finale is great. It does have...
And they don't string it out?
It's a bit... it's all right.
Kind of thing going on, like an ongoing story throughout the whole series, or is it like a different scenario every episode?
Oh yeah, it's definitely an ongoing story. Yeah, so it's the main character. He's that teenage boy. He's like 14 or something. He's the main character, and Chucky's a doll. Chucky's a doll that ends up kind of in his hands because he's a lonely kind of guy, and it ends up as his kind of doll. But it spins off from there, so it's an ongoing story that happens to tie into the films that came before.
Okay.
Devon Sawa is in it. He's a dad. He's the guy, from years ago, Final Destination.
He's popping up again. He's supposed to be in Black Friday. Well, I say supposed to. He is in Black Friday.
Black Friday, yes. Yeah, he's about.
Which I believe is coming out on DVD next month.
Oh, wow. What, in the UK, yeah?
I think so, yeah. So
nice.
I've heard. It's the only thing I've heard about it since. I haven't heard great reviews about it from people. It's a lot of people saying it's not that great, but if it's got him and it's got Bruce in it, then who cares? And zombies, it's going to be amazing.
Bruce, yeah, it looks fun. We shall see. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be worth a look. It's cool that it's coming out. Yeah, so Chucky, I'd say watch it. I mean, like I said, the word on the street is that the finale is good. It does seem to be moving quite decently. Like there is characters in it that you'll think, but then those ones are largely meant to be grating. It could probably be done in shorter time, but there's enough there. Each episode's about 45 minutes, I suppose. And I suppose it's just fun to have most of the gang back, like Brad Dourif especially.
Yeah.
Jennifer Tilly, if you're a fan of her, she's now, as I'm watching it, she's now coming into it in a big way. So, yeah. If you're a Chucky fan, I think it probably ticks most of the boxes, which is cool. Yeah, I think that's it, Sarah. That's probably what I've watched.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I suppose it is, isn't it? I don't know how I rammed it all in, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there to get through, man. It's just never ending.
It is.
So it's time for the main focus this month, which is because it's Christmas. We thought it would be a good idea. We're recording this the week before Christmas. We're going out on Christmas Eve, not going out as in going out for a night, but the episode's going out, and it made sense to do ghost stories. Don't know about you, but I always associate Christmas with ghost stories, and winter in general is a fantastic time to read a chilly ghost story or watch a similarly themed film. And for the main look at things this month, we're going to look at the two Woman in Black films that have come out in very different eras as two examples of the form. And for me, The Woman in Black, the original film version from 1989, is very much about Christmas because it was shown on Christmas Eve in 1989 when I was 11, Sarah. 11. Can you believe that?
Gosh, all that time ago.
Yes.
Like, what was that? Like 10 years ago now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just 10 years ago. Yes. I am 21 now. Yeah. And The Woman in Black is a really good book. I mean, if you've read it or not, it's a very slim book. It's like 130 or so pages. So a novella, really, by Susan Hill, written in the early 80s. And it's become this huge thing because it was a book and people went, oh, yeah, it's a book. And they liked it. And then it became a huge West End play, which I haven't seen, but I know people that have and say it's fantastically creepy and spooky. The play does change a few things about the book, including the ending, as do the two films that we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Interestingly. So yeah, it was already on the stage by the end of the 80s in a small way. Then it became a big West End thing. And in 1989, it became this ITV production, which little me watched on Christmas Eve while waiting for Santa, having had to sit through Cagney and Lacey beforehand, as the minutes seemed like hours, waiting for presents. And The Woman in Black blew me away, blew me the fuck away because it was terrifying. And I was a horror fan, so I'd watched a lot of stuff already. I'd watched all the proper, all the 80s horror films that you can think of. I'd probably have watched already on VHS, but I always had a thing where if a ghost story was told in the right way, I'd be proper spooked. And that's what happened with this one, because it's it's that classic thing of where, oh, this is quite a cozy period drama on Christmas Eve.
It seems nice and wholesome and friendly. Everyone's happy and smiling.
It's got British actors in it.
Yeah, like good old hard-working, working class people working for a living, just trying to get by, being all cheery about it.
Yeah, and then God,
this creepy woman starts appearing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I have to say, this is kind of a very slanted thing as far as I'm concerned, because this is one of my favorites. I mean, it's not just because of the nostalgia factor, although that's a thing, because it really did, in the polite parlance, shit me up back in the day. But it makes sense that it did, because it's written by Nigel Neal, who adapted the book by Susan Hill and was pretty faithful to it. I think there's a few things that she hated. Like, she hated that he changed the sex of the dog, who's a girl dog in the book. Spider.
Oh, Spider? Yeah, Spider's like my favourite character.
You're rooting for Spidey. Well, yeah, Spider's great. Spider's a big part of the book as well. Spider is what kind of keeps him sane up to a point. Very important. But yeah, Nigel Neal has extraordinary, Nigel Neal, this is one of the last, I guess this was the last horror-ish thing he did, but he's the guy that created Quatermass, and he did really disturbing shows in the 70s, like Beasts, if you ever get a chance to watch Beasts. So yeah, it had a proper horror pedigree behind it. And it works really well. I mean, it's got what I think is a really good, sympathetic main character, as he is in the book. In the book, he's it's told in flashback in the book, but he's 22 years old, I think, in the main action in the book, which kind of makes sense later on when you have young Daniel Radcliffe cast, because he kind of fits that age group. You really root for him, and the build up, I think, is really good. Obviously, you start seeing the eponymous Woman in Black as a kind of mortar in churchyards and things like that. And you do get you do get a lot of the almost Hammer horror thing of, oh, there's no road to Real Marsh House.
Yeah.
You'll
Don't
never
stay there after 5.
yeah, don't
When
go
the
there.
fog comes in, yeah.
Don't go near the marsh, you'll be done for. There's a lot of that going on, and I'm not quite sure where those people are from, but yes. What I like about all of these things, and indeed a few ghost stories, which we'll possibly mention later, is that in this genre, which is quite rare, and in both cases with these two films, is that you're following a genuinely freaked out and frightened man, rather than a woman wandering about with a candelabra. You're following a grown man that's genuinely terrified and is victimized.
Jumping at shadows, and by the end of it turns into a complete mess. Makes himself really, really ill in the 80s one, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
The whole experience, yeah.
Yeah, it's Adrian Rawlins that plays him in the early one, and it does it really well, I think. And it's parts
lovely.
of the movie are him by himself, which is the same for the 2012 one and indeed for the novel, and it works really well. And I just think the way it builds is superb. I think ghost stories are all about mood, and they're all about the build up. And I think the best of them are fairly quiet movies, which the 89 Woman in Black is what you would call a quiet movie, which for me is a big bonus because the atmosphere is so strong. And I could talk about it forever, but what's your thoughts on the 1989 Woman in Black, Sarah? Because I think, was this the first time you'd watched it?
Yeah, I'd not seen it before.
Yeah,
I know.
wow.
Shame on me. Just after you said, how it freaked you out so much as a kid and stuff, I was like, I really ought to, get on and watch this.
Sure.
And I did find it, obviously, really wholesome to start off with. I was just like, I just love everyone. It does kind of remind me of the kind of like Dickens-esque Christmas Carol type thing going on, with your old men in like the Sam Toovey who takes him in, lends him Spider and stuff. Those characters were great. The old man that played the estate agent.
Yeah,
he was great too. I loved the build up because to start off with, it's in daylight. He's seeing the woman in black in the graveyard in daylight and stuff, and you're thinking to yourself, I know that nobody else can see her and it is just him. And you don't feel a complete sense of dread until you get to the house, but it's just the way they build it up.
Yeah.
And she's great. They don't rely on any jump scares or any of the sort in these kind of ones, which they then tend to like lean on more in the 2012 one. This one's a little bit more simpler, but I love the concept of it. Obviously, it's a woman that goes out luring children. There's this whole underlying thing that whoever sees the woman in black, their child or a child from the village as it is going to get taken, disappear.
Yes.
Who knows what happens to them and stuff. And that's quite a dark undertone going on in the village. No one really wants to talk about it, but they know that it's going on.
Yeah, it's really disturbing, isn't it? And
the ending, man, God, that just absolutely like blew my mind. They totally did mix it up. I mean, I've never read the book either. Shame on me again. So I don't know what the ending in the book is. And obviously the two movies have completely different endings, but that is one hell of a shock thing to end on in the 80s one.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary, and that, there's other things about the film that always stayed with me, but that ending, whether you watch it at 11 or not, I think it does stay with you because it's kind of astonishing.
That's crazy.
And we're going to talk about it, so we're going to spoil it right now.
Let's do it.
If that's not your bag, if you're listening. But yeah, it really is, and it's it's cruel in a way that I think Nigel Neal as a writer often was. His stories, including even the Quatermass things, which maybe people remember from a cozy period of horror, really aren't. They're quite dark and pretty cynical. This is kind of faithful to the book. Actually, it's very faithful to the book. I mean, the book is different in the sense of the main character is reflecting on these events. So he's 35, I think, in the book.
Oh, okay.
Telling
So
the story
back,
yeah, when he was 22. So in the modern day, he's remarried or he's engaged or something, and he's reflecting on how he lost his wife and child in the
Two
earlier.
children.
Yeah, it's just one in the book, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So there's a few changes, but the ending is very similar in a lot of ways, because basically in the book, there's a sense of closure, like in the film. You know, things seem to have sorted themselves out. He's moved on. You think, okay, this seems to be all okay.
He's away from the area, and you kind of think that it's like just kind of village related, really.
Yeah, the curse is broken, or at least his part in the curse is broken. And in the book, his wife and son, so he's just those two. They're on a pony and trap ride. It's all jolly, and then it collides with a tree. And he watches them. The wife doesn't die straight away in the book, but I think she lives for like a year, and then she just dies, and the son is killed instantly. So there's an awful moment where he sees his corpse at the scene. So that that's really strong stuff. But seeing it in the film is kind of mental, because he's reunited with his family, and it's a nice day out on the river.
He's happy,
there is that moment where he spots the woman on the water, which is, I think, a really great image. I love that image. I think that's fantastic. And the ending is quite different in style to the rest of the film, because for the only time in the film it uses quite a lot of rapid cuts. The rest of the film is very deliberately paced, which works really well for it, and it's very much about, you hear the screams of his wife and the soundtrack, and you realize, oh shit, you realize exactly what's happening. The visuals of the river are very kind of remind me of the 70s stuff, even the 70s, the great classic 70s public information film about not playing near the river, Dark and Lonely Water, which made us all afraid of doing just that in the 80s. But yeah, it's an astonishing moment. And it just fades out on that moment.
And you're like, wow, that's it. They've just wiped out an entire family. I'm guessing that's why they had to do it differently to the book. They wanted to do this shock thing, so they're like, we'll add another kid, make it even worse, and then we'll just kill everyone off.
Yeah, because it has those kind of soft focus, cozy scenes early on with the family, doesn't it? Where it's setting them up, which again is quite cruel, really, because they're setting them up just so they can be introduced, so they can be all killed off at the end.
Yeah.
Which is...
And they are a lovely family as well, even though the
really
kid
sweet.
is annoying, obviously. But the wife is lovely. He's lovely.
Yeah,
there's another
well
bit.
Cast.
Yeah, later on, once he's back from Eelmarsh House and back in his office, where he has a bit of a breakdown and he starts burning everything. That's quite disturbing as well, really.
Yeah. As you said, the build-up's really, really good, isn't it? And so much of it is because he's such a good actor in that role. And there's a few kind of creepy moments. I know the only direct nod, I suppose, to earlier films, maybe, and I presume it's intentional, is the bouncing ball, which feels like a nod to the Changeling, and of course the one big scare, which is the thing where he's quite late on, isn't it, where he's struggling mentally with everything, and he's in bed at the pub, I think, when she appears while he's in bed, which is an astonishing moment.
Yeah, that is scary. Which was the bit that totally got you when you were a kid?
It was the two. It was the ending, and it was that bit in bed where
okay, cool.
I think he initially sees the shadow, and then you get what
and
I
then she's
think.
Right close up, screaming.
Right in his grill. And that's the only real proper lingering glance you get of the woman, isn't it? Otherwise, she's shown in long shot, or she's very rarely in the film, which is I think the key to this. And I do remember, because you don't forget this stuff, but I do remember that moment where he's having a nice rest, or trying to have a nice rest, because he's already really traumatized, and it's probably the only thing you could call a jump scare in this film. But that moment where he's screaming, the scream carries over into the ad break, fucking hell, because of course this was on ITV, on commercial TV, so every 20 minutes or so you'd have some adverts for Bird's Eye fish fingers to break the tension. But in this case, you were grateful for the ads, because oh Jesus Christ, must go and get some Ovaltine.
Calm himself down.
So yeah, the two, I think it's perhaps unique because it was the overall atmosphere of the thing, but definitely that shock with her appearing while he's in the bed, and the ending with the family is the two moments that would maybe they gave me nightmares. I can't remember, but they definitely always stayed with me.
Yeah,
which is fantastic result from anything. If it stays.
It does. It has a little bit of everything, really, doesn't it? Like you say, nice spooky story, great characters, and you've always got to have a dog. And Spider makes it. You know, they don't kill the dog off or do anything twatty like that.
Yeah,
Spider's fine.
Yeah, there's some stage. I think this is a modern thing, but at some stage, it became a real cliche, didn't it? Like, and it says a lot maybe about the use of animals in films generally, but it became a cliche where the nice family that have just got a new babysitter who seems a bit weird but nice enough, and they have a dog, just so that the dog can be the first one that's pinned to a door, to prove that she's really unhinged. You know, that it was the disposable character, which I guess used to be in the old days. I suppose instead of a dog, they'd have like a gay neighbor or a black character next door that would be an easy victim to knock off in the early going, because that's how things were.
That now.
Yeah, we use the dog
with household pets
because that's okay. The rabbit in Fatal Attraction. How many cats in horror films? And dogs, and they were all doing it. Like Dead Calm, I remember, has a scene where Nicole Kidman inadvertently spear guns the dogs to the door. But yes, the Woman in Black, fantastic, just fantastic. And one of the great things, and it was one of those things which never got spoiled or had a chance to be spoiled, because I think I did check this the other day, but I think it was only repeated once on a different channel, on Channel 4 in the 90s, and never had an official video or DVD release. There was bootlegs, because randomly, Sarah, I remember picking up a bootleg. Clearly it was a bootleg because it looked so shite, for £1 in Blackpool.
Wow.
I was like, wow.
Was it recorded off the telly? Did it have the adverts in it?
No adverts, but it might as well have done, because it looked like Jim Bowen at the end suddenly.
Scotch tape.
Yeah. Because I remember thinking, that's strange. I didn't realise this had a proper release, and it clearly wasn't.
Oh, it's a quid. Sod it, I'll take it anyway.
And just to watch it in any form was great.
It for years,
And that, I think that was only the second time I watched it. And then in 2020, the very nice Blu-ray from Network came out, which is where, and it really is impressive what they did. This movie was shot on 16mm, so some TV was shot on video, and you can really tell in the 80s, but some was shot on proper film, and they remastered it, and it looks really good. And there is a version, there's two versions on the disc, I think. There's a version where you can watch it, not with the actual ads, but with the bits where the ad breaks were. So where it says end of part 1.
Fill in your own adverts.
Yes. Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah, you can like act out the Milk Tray Man advert in your if you're so.
Oh my God, I want to do it. That's great. I love that. Great. They should do more of that with the TV movies. They should actually have the option adverts or no adverts.
I think so. I don't know about you, but we made great efforts, unless of course it was something you were taping later at night. But if we were watching something that we thought, we should tape this at the same time, we'd make great efforts to slickly stop recording for the ads.
Yeah, and then sit there having to watch all the adverts just so you can press record again. Don't want to miss it.
Yes. Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley.
VHS players and stuff back in those days, when you pressed record, didn't mean it was going to record straight away. You'd have to press it a good 30 seconds beforehand. So you'd have to guess. Yes, you're going to be on next, and then you'd get the end of the Tesco's advert or something.
Yeah, bollocks. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then there were mental things. I mean, this wasn't one of them, but it was quite common for films to start at 9 on ITV, and then you get an hour in. Die Hard's getting really good, and Die Hard continues after the news at 10. And you'd have 40 minutes, because it wouldn't just be the news at 10. It'd be, and now here's the local news for the Anglia region and today's weather.
Yeah, and you'd think, I would think at the time, I've never been someone that can stay up awfully late anyway, and I'd be like, I'm doing so well. I can do this. I can make it through the news and then just fall asleep 10 minutes into the news, miss the other half of the film.
Well, that's it. Yeah, a standard hour-and-a-half film would take the entire night to watch, because they've got the news welded into it. The news must be on at 10. It's the law.
Yeah.
Can't you just move the news to a different? No, it's the news at
Or put the
10.
film on earlier.
Yes. Got a crazy suggestion. It might just work. Put the film on earlier.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these were the days. But yeah, it's
great days.
it's fantastic. Yeah, and it's nice to revisit. And that Blu-ray, which has a great commentary as well, which really puts it in the context of it being on TV at the end of the 80s.
Nice.
It also felt like the end of an era. Like, although I'm not old enough to have watched the Ghost Stories for Christmas that were a huge part of the 70s on BBC One at Christmas, obviously, they were repeated a lot in the 80s, and they were similar to this. Really, there was usually a male leading character that got spooked by a very discreetly shown ghost. And they were quiet, but they always had at least one moment that made you go, oh, there was always one big scare.
Yeah.
And this feels like one of those because it's a period film as well. But probably better because it does have, in some ways better, because it does have a much more sympathetic character than the dusty old academics, which would usually be the main characters of the 70s ones. But I guess it's very much in the spirit of those ones, and kind of the end of the line, because after this, there's not a huge amount of period ghost stories. There are some very good ones, but they tend to be the minority. But yeah, The Woman in Black, Sarah, wasn't over there. It became this big West End show, and then it became another movie. It was remade or readapted.
Yep. And
in 2012.
Starring Daniel Radcliffe, right off the back of his Harry Potter performances. Was that one of the first films he did after Harry Potter, do you think?
I think so, because the Deathly Hallows, was that 2010-ish?
Yeah, part 2 was 2011.
2011. Wow. So yeah, this would have been this would have been his transition.
Yeah.
So,
which is cool because he kind of like showed himself as a adaptable person and can change into different roles and stuff. But it was kind of an awkward character for him to start with, I believe, because although it's would they call it a remake or a revamp? Do you reckon?
Well, it's tricky with this, isn't it? Because it's with this, I'm never quite sure if you can really say it's a remake, because it's really just another adaptation of the book.
Yeah.
Which very different in some ways, but then the first one changed parts too.
In the book, do they keep is the main character Arthur Kidd as he is in the 80s one?
The book he's for the story he's flashing back on, he's in his 20s, but it's totally different in the 2012. He doesn't have a dead wife. Oh, sorry.
Is that the name that he goes by in the book? Because they changed the name for the 2012 one, don't they? Only
That's
slightly.
right.
They change kind of everyone's names a little bit. So Daniel plays the Arthur Kidd character, but they've changed him to Arthur Kipps.
Yes, I'm sure it's Arthur Kidd in the book.
Oh, cool. Okay, and in this one, he was married and he has a son, just the one. But his wife has died in childbirth. Is what they want you to think in this one. And it starts off very darkly. I think this one definitely plays more on the child killing thing than the 80s one did, because it starts off with like 3 girls jumping to their doom, really, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah, the 3, with that kind of silent sequence.
Yeah, very dark and gloomy and a lot more depressing than the 80s one started off with. That's the thing I instantly picked up on after watching the 2. I actually watched the 2 back to back.
Oh, nice.
I was like, sod it, I've seen this one, now I'm going to watch the Radcliffe one. And I was like, whoa, this is like crazy different. Yeah, it's a lot moodier and a lot darker, and he's very depressed. He plays a quite gloomy, unhappy character.
Yeah.
He does it really well, but I do think even though you say he is a very young chap in the book at 22, Daniel Radcliffe still looks really young in this.
Yeah, he does indeed, doesn't he?
He only just pulls it off, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Whereas Adrian Rawlins, who plays Arthur in the 80s one, seems a little bit older, more believable. You know, you'd say he was mid to late 20s. Whereas in this, you're like,
sure.
Daniel Radcliffe's probably only just pushing 20.
He is very young looking, and it makes sense that it was so soon after Deathly Hallows. I think he's really done a disservice by the film. I think the change to make him a recent widow really harms it, because it's just extra baggage that it doesn't need.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Yeah, I didn't like that bit.
Totally
I was like, it needs to be more upbeat. You know, I think he would have done well trying to do a similar character to the Arthur Kidd character. If he was a little bit more upbeat and happy, you know, you'd see the unraveling.
I think so.
More.
Yeah, this naive kind of
he's
guy.
already kind of like zoned out, numb to the world anyway.
Yeah, and all his entire performance, through no fault of his own, he's really just a reactive one of, you know, moving from scene to scene in this kind of dodgy theme park version of The Woman in Black. And yeah, the baggage of the dead wife, we don't need that. It just I think it totally shags it in a bad way.
Yeah, it does. It does. But because it's newer and because it's more edgy, they try and give it a little bit more action. I quite like I do like the action scenes, like trying to save the girl from the fire. That's kind of cool. Him digging up the boy's body from the swamp, really like that as well. I like the effects and stuff they use. But I have another thing that I want to point out. In the first one, he goes to the Drablow. What was her name? Mrs. Drablow's
Drablow,
house.
yeah.
Yeah, she'd passed away a month ago. So when he goes to Eel Marsh House to go through all of her stuff, you know, the house is kind of a cluttered old woman's house, isn't it? In the 2012 one, it's dilapidated. It's like, I thought she was only supposed to have been dead a month. I'm not quite sure they clarify that.
That's the whole idea. Yeah, it doesn't make sense if she hasn't been dead a month, because it's her affairs.
Yeah, he goes into the kitchen and the tap is like coughing out sludge. It's like, if she'd been dead a month, you know, her house wouldn't be in that bad of a state, I don't think. Well, it's not the way it was portrayed in the first one. Yeah, there is a lot of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense.
That's right. The whole idea is that he attends her funeral as part of his duties as the solicitor and sorting out her affairs. So it would have been very recent. It has to be. It doesn't work otherwise. It doesn't make it. Why would he wait that long for the sludge, stage of this?
To go to the house.
And I think that's one of many ways that this version really insults the intelligence of the audience, because it's just there because they want to have those Amityville horror moments of the sludge coming out of the taps, which we've all seen before.
They want to make it creepy and mouldy and foisty.
Yes.
Which they do succeed in doing, because it does look a lot creepier than the 80s version, but it's unnecessary.
Yeah, and it's movie creepy rather than really creepy. It's like, this is what we think a haunted house should look like, rather than it being your nan's house, which of course, if she's died recently and there's this backstory, it's much creepier than the kind of low budget Tim Burton thing that's going on here. Which we talked about, or we mentioned to each other. It is, you said it is. It's
more Tim Burton than a Tim Burton movie.
If there was Helena Bonham Carter playing old Woman in Black, it wouldn't be out of place.
No, absolutely not. In fact, they missed a trick there.
Can you do?
If Daniel Radcliffe wasn't doing, he'd finished with Harry Potter. She'd finished with Harry Potter.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, Johnny Depp's out of our price range. Let's do this. Yes. Yeah.
But they still have Spider, but I think they have actually changed Spider back to a girl.
Yes,
and she looks completely different from old Spider.
Yeah, the Spider from the other ones.
But she's hardly in it, so she's not in it quite as much. And they pay a lot more attention to the Tuvey character, who they've changed names and called him Sam Daly rather than Sam Tuvey.
That's right, and that's what's his name? Yeah, Kieran Hines.
Kieran Hines, yeah. They kind of like focus more on him, his crazy wife, who has
Yes.
these strange convulsions and gets overtaken by possibly the ghost of the woman in black. I'm not entirely sure what she's doing when she starts
Well,
etching things into
yeah.
tables and
Well,
gravestones.
is that because that's more bad? That's more shit. Is that's more baggage to shoehorn in? I don't get the point because she thinks that her dead son is communicating through her. Isn't that the
That's
thing?
it. Something like that, yeah.
Um, and he's like, you know, Mr. Skeptical, and he thinks
Yeah.
everybody's superstitious.
Sure,
Um,
yeah.
but
Doesn't believe in it.
there's no real place for her. It's another classic, you know, script writing thing of keep some action coming, and having this woman maybe getting possessed in this little downtime from Daniel at the house. Yeah, yeah.
And it does have a lot of jump scares. The woman in
Oh
black isn't
God.
in it as much as she is in the 80s one.
No, she's like this. She's like at one point she's like on a being pushed on a trolley or something. She speeds towards him like some kind of ghost train thing. Oh,
Yeah.
with her mouth open.
Mhm. Yeah, but she's definitely not in it half as much. She doesn't appear in the great. Well, he doesn't really do the whole funeral thing either.
No, which is a real miss trick.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big part of introducing the woman in black. But they do focus a lot more on the child killing thing, but they keep it to the area as well. So
Yeah,
by the end of the week, once Arthur's finished sorting out all the paperwork, his boy is coming to him at the village.
yeah,
And obviously he's seen the
that's
woman in
right.
black, so now he's like really scared that his son is gonna get got. So he comes up with a plan with Mr. Daly about trying to get the young lad Nathaniel, which was Drablow's adopted son, back out of the marsh who drowned, and all will be good. But that doesn't
Yeah,
actually happen. But the ending is so rubbish compared to the ending of the 80s one. I mean,
it's
you know,
really bad.
that was shocking that they did the ending that they did in the 80s one. And I was kind of looking forward to see how they were going to recreate that in the 2012 one. And then I just went, what? That's such a cop out. It is floaty and it's moronic
Yeah.
and it's sappy.
Oh, it's just that's your mummy. It's just terrible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I did end up hating this actually. I hadn't watched it since it came out. And I remember actually not hating it before. I remember it thinking it, yeah, you know, possibly doing a bit of moaning. But yeah, watching it again, especially that ending, is just terrible. Who really
Yeah.
signed that off?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't need to see it again. I did like Daniel Radcliffe, and I've loved him in all of the films he's done since Harry Potter and this. You know, he's got better and better and better. But yeah, I
Oh,
don't
for
need to
sure.
see that one again.
Yeah, it's a shame because he is really good, and he's proven that in loads of things. Um, Definitely the best actor of those Harry Potter trio by a long way.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this is really poor. I thought it's there's the odd moment, like I thought the as you said, the which suggests maybe a stronger film than it ends up being, but the focus on the most kind of dark and macabre stuff of the dead kids in the first half
Mm. Hmm.
um, is quite good, and there's a moment where there's the little girl that drinks lye, I think, and she starts vomiting blood,
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
and
that's cool.
yeah, there's a particularly great moment soon after that where I think you hear the kind of wails of grief from her mother before you see her mother, and that struck me as quite a powerful moment. That's probably closer than anything else in this film to the mood of the book, which is not like without humor, but which is very obviously morbid, as it has to be.
Mm.
But the rest of it, the peekaboo stuff, I think I was messaging this, or maybe just in my mind, but there's two bird scares in one scene. You know, the quiet, quiet. Oh, a bird has appeared.
Yes.
just the laziest horror movie making.
And the toys.
The constant close-ups of toys.
Yeah, creepy.
We've not seen that before.
Yeah.
The dead kids with open mouths, the crap portrayal of the ghost train woman in black.
Yeah.
And those lazy things like the driver of the thing appearing out of the fog, you know.
Oh yeah.
The didn't mean to scare you moment that you get in every other slasher film. Yeah, I think it's quite terrible for a film that's actually quite well liked and which did really well when it came out. I think it's actually pretty terrible. And it pains me to say it because I like the book a lot and I like the old one, and they could have done a good job of this kind of thing. But it's so much, you know.
If they had gone for more of a remake, then let's make this completely different and change the ending completely. You know, they should have possibly stuck to the same plot and structure of the first one.
Yeah, entirely.
Would have got away with it
and
without trying to be different.
Because there's no point, is there? There's no point in, because the ending. I mean, take away how awful it is, and like something out of the Demi Moore, Patrick Swayze Ghost. Take away that, and the ending is still bleak because your hero is still dead, and you've killed off the kid. So everybody's dead at the end that you're meant to care about. So if you're going to do that, then either do it or not. You know, don't do that if you're going to then sap out and have this horrible highway to heaven moment at the end.
Yeah.
Which is terrible. And the rest of it is really, especially when it came out 2012, is secondhand Japanese horror stuff. It's the stuff that was cliched already before they'd remade The Ring, including the stuff with dolls and the use of kids. So yeah. Oh, I just. Yeah.
Oh well. Just stick to the 80s one. We'll just pretend that one doesn't exist.
Stay in the 80s. That's my solution to everything. Yeah, it's
absolutely.
A shame. The guy that made this directed Eden Lake. Did you ever watch Eden Lake?
No, afraid not.
Is really good. Which is a totally different horror film where Michael Fassbender and his wife are terrorized by a bunch of horrible hoodies. You know, horrible teenagers that do horrible things to them, and it was quite controversial when it came out. It was very much part of that time of the newspaper saying we had to be afraid of teenagers. But it's really harsh, and it has compared to this especially, it has the harshest, most horrible ending imaginable. Eden Lake, yeah, really good. Check it out. But yeah, same director.
Did he learn from his mistakes?
Maybe.
Let's not cop out with a sappy ending this time. Let's really go for it.
Yeah, I mean, this one I suppose makes sense because Radcliffe was a big star. This was going to be his crossover movie. This was the return of Hammer as a production company.
Right.
So they had to kind of make something, especially with him as the star. It was a 12 film over here, 12 rated. And they slightly trimmed it, I think, just to tone the volume down for some of the scares, which is amusing because it's not at all scary. So I guess there was a lot of compromising that had to go on that made things like the ending be what it is, I presume. I don't know. Which is a bit of a shame.
It is a bit of a shame, but it's kind of, I mean, you say it's not scary. I don't find it that scary either. Okay, a couple of jump scares always get me, but you get over it. But I do remember a lot of my non-horror friends coming up to me, go, "Oh no, that was too scary for me." Like, really? Seriously?
Crumbs. Yeah, that does happen, doesn't it? It's surprising what
because a lot of Daniel Radcliffe fans were like, "Oh, I can't go and see him in this film." And they're like, "Oh no, it's too scary. Too scary."
And maybe that's
Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's probably it. I suppose horror fans, it's easy for us to say, oh yeah, this wouldn't scare a fly. But then there was always, this was a popular movie, so it's good that that people like it. It's,
yeah,
wouldn't want to take that away.
There were people out there that found it scary.
Yeah, and that's interesting.
Then they got to the ending.
Yeah, I don't know. Do people get to that moment? They're like, oh, that's so powerful. Maybe they do, because if they find the rest of it scary.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe they did agree. Maybe they thought it was a good ending.
Yeah. And as painful as it is for me to say this, there's a chance that they could, if they were forced to, they could watch the older version and just think it was terrible. So, other opinions are available.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, that's the Woman in Black, Sarah. I mean, or the Women in Black, I guess, including the bad one. But obviously, if you like it, that's fine, and that's good because we wouldn't want everyone to be the same. And ghost stories in general. I mean, the Woman in Black is one of the most successful of the recent ghost story movies that have come out. It's only a decade old. And interestingly, Sarah, this stuff always makes a comeback. So in 99, I always see that as a big year for ghost stories because I think the Blair Witch Project is really a ghost story.
Yes.
As we've discussed before. And The Sixth Sense came out in 99, and those two movies were massive and also massively influential and copied loads of times. Sixth Sense, the twist was copied so much. Blair Witch, obviously, found footage became a big thing.
Kicked off, yeah.
Yeah, and also the somewhat underrated Kevin Bacon Stir of Echoes is a really good ghost story from that same period.
Yeah.
Well worth. Have you seen Stir of Echoes?
No.
It's really good, man. Especially if you're a Kevin Bacon fan.
Oh, I'm definitely a Kevin Bacon fan.
Yeah, check that out. I think it did okay, and people it had great reviews and stuff. But it came out very close to The Sixth Sense, and it does feature a kid as well. And I think it was just unfortunate that it kind of got a little lost. But that's proper spooky at times. So thinking about it, what would you say are some of your favorite ghost story movies beyond the old Women in Black that we've just encountered?
Oh, definitely Blair Witch for sure. Love that film.
Yeah.
I was never massively into the whole ghost story thing, but I do like Sleepy Hollow, stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Sleepy Hollow is good.
1999 again, another kind of spooky ghost story. Like you said, there was lots of them about. The BBC ghost stories, which I think you were going to bring up as well. Definitely fantastic. A really good one, especially at Christmas time for some reason.
Yeah, they work really well. They're proper atmospheric, and for us, those 70s things are really interesting. Like Whistle and I'll Come to You. A lot of it was set at Holcombe Beach. They did film loads of those things in East Anglia, which makes sense because we live in a part of the UK that's got these fantastic old places and villages that haven't really changed much since 1641. I think that's quite cool about those and makes them extra spooky.
Yeah. Around where we live, there is lots of like historical monuments and creepy churches and all sorts of that. So I get that.
Yeah.
It's quite a creepy, eerie place.
Yeah.
And there's a recent...
Sorry, yes.
There's a recent Ghost Stories film that came out in 2017, literally just called Ghost Stories.
Yes.
Which I absolutely loved. I went to see this at the cinema when they were doing the Scream Unseen thing. So they would do this thing every couple of months where a new horror movie would come out and you could go and see it for $5, but they wouldn't tell you what it was. So you always got excited, pay your $5, go in to see, and there'd be like, it could be this, 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 and this. And I hadn't even heard of this until it appeared, and it turned out to be Ghost Stories. And I went with two other friends and absolutely loved it. I thought it was really, really eerie. It's kind of like an anthology within a story.
Yeah.
British made, written and starring by Andy Nyman, who's been in many, many horror movies and just British TV series and stuff. He actually was in the 1989 Woman in Black movie, which I had to double check with you earlier, didn't I? Because I was like, I can't remember who he was. I didn't recognise him.
It's like a baby.
Yeah, he was like, that's what I actually thought. I was like, is he one of the kids? I was like, no, I'm sure he's older than I am. But no, he kind of like takes the helm in this. He did co-write it with a guy called Jeremy Dyson. And it's a ghost story that has so many twists and turns and then ends up with a complete, like, oh my God moment. which isn't really involved with ghost stories at all, but the whole thing is just eerie and creepy. And they kind of
it's so
split it
good.
into 3. It's so good, so good.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. It stars Andy Nyman, as we say. He's one of the main characters. He plays a kind of character who he's trying to debunk fraudulent psychics. So he goes around trying to explain these unexplained paranormal events that have been given to him by one of his heroes. And he goes around to try and find them out. And one of the stories contains a night watchman, which is probably the scariest one of the 2. And it's Paul Whitehouse literally just kind of sitting in a warehouse on his own, getting really freaked out. But it's so eerie, isn't it?
That's fun. Yeah, that's the one. The other 2 are really good as well, with Martin Freeman and I think it's Alex Lawther, isn't it? But yeah, the Night Watchman one is really creepy, and it kind of reminded me at the time that Paul Whitehouse is a really good straight actor as well as being a great comedian.
A comedian, yeah.
Fantastic. That's so spooky. Yeah,
really,
Ghost
really
Stories
spooky.
is great. And I think ghost stories work really well in that short form, which is why those BBC ones, which are usually about half an hour or 40 minutes, work so well. Often they're based on short stories anyway, like those were based on M.R. James. And we said, The Woman in Black is a very short novel. But I think that's why Ghost Stories works really well. One of my great regrets is that I never saw the West End production, which it was based off,
Okay.
That was on the stage from 2010, I think, and presumably still would be and maybe is, but obviously has been hampered by stuff and things. But yeah, Andy Nyman was the star and creator with Jeremy Dyson of the stage play, which apparently there's a few major differences, I think, to that and the film, understandably. But apparently is incredible, and I think as well, I may be wrong, but I think they tweaked it for performances, so it wasn't always the exact same show every time, so there'd be slightly different scares and things like that. But
that's cool.
I do
Would
wish
it still have the same ending?
I'm sure they changed the ending for the film. I'm sure the film ending was different.
Oh really? Ooh.
Yeah,
I did wonder. It probably would be kind of difficult to recreate the ending of the film in a theatre environment, but not completely undoable. But yeah, that just knocked me completely for 6, because you're thinking it's just this kind of straightforward anthology story of 3 different ghost stories that all have completely different things to do with it, but it all links in at the end, and then it goes a little bit crazy in the middle, what with the bullying, bullies attacking the mentally disabled guy, and it all gets quite frantic and it's quite upsetting, isn't it, when you actually get to the end?
It's a really sad ending, yeah, and it's essentially it's a different kind of haunting, isn't it? He's totally haunted by this moment in his life that he has such great regret for. And that's a lot of these ghost things. A lot of these things are about something that's kind of relatable and very sad. Yeah, that's brilliant film. A great choice. And yeah, I saw it after you, because I didn't see the secret thingy, but I saw it when it was on release, and it got great reviews, but it didn't really seem to do that well. I think another kind of one that slipped through the cracks, maybe, that you don't hear enough people talking about. Yeah,
absolutely. Like I say, I went with 2 friends, and me and one of my friends absolutely loved it. My other friend was like, "Oh, that was shit." I was like, "How can you say?" She actually said that she thought it was shit.
That's astonishing.
She thought it was boring. I was just like, "What?" It's like, have you been watching the same film as us?
It's bad. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, I never quite get it.
No, it's fantastic. I went out and bought it as soon as it came out on DVD, and I have watched it several times.
Yeah, it holds up. It holds up once you know the twist, which is often the tricky thing, isn't it?
Sure.
But it does hang together, especially when the individual stories are so good, especially the Night Watchman thingy. That's pretty harrowing. Yeah, nice. Yeah, nice choice. Any others that you can think of that you really... What's your views on The Sixth Sense? Are you a fan?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of forget about it sometimes. Don't necessarily associate it being a ghost story, probably because it was such a big budget and so many stars and stuff. You go, oh god, yeah, of course it was. But yeah, that was another one that was another like kick you in the face when you realise the twist. Did not see that coming at all until right at the last minute.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a moment, isn't it? Which wasn't the first time that twist was done in movies. There's obviously other kind of, oh, he was dead all along things, and then after The Sixth Sense, there were loads of them. Oh, they're all dead. The others, the premise I can't remember exactly, but the premise of The Others, the Nicole Kidman film, is where I think pretty much everybody is dead except for maybe one or two characters. I can't remember exactly. I haven't watched it for a long time, but that takes it to the other extreme.
Yeah, the twist is which one isn't dead.
Yeah, that was it. I think that's the whole idea with the title as well. I think the idea is that the others, the ghosts, and only she was actually alive the whole time. I think that's the gist of it. But yeah, we've seen that twist happen a few times. But in Sixth Sense, it's brilliant and it's so well done and it's genuinely creepy. Obviously, I've forgotten the guy's name. Who plays the kid? It's Harley. Epic fail.
Oh no.
Haley Joel Osment. That's it.
That's the one. That's the one you got there. Well done.
He's genuinely, convincing in that role, which I think goes a long way. And when you watch it again and you know that Bruce Willis is dead, it makes total sense. You're like, how did we not realize that no one else interacts with him except the boy that can see dead people,
Yeah.
But that's also a heartbreaker as well when you rewatch it and you have that scene with his wife, who, when you watch it the first time, you don't realize is actually a recent widow. And you just think that they're having a chat because their marriage is broken. That's a great film. And very quiet too. Sixth Sense has the occasional jump scare, but a lot of it is moody and slowly paced, which I think works so well with ghost stories because it's all about the atmosphere. The Shining is a great ghost story. Obviously Jack, by definition, hijacks The Shining, but still, I think it's an amazing ghost story because the hotel is a massive character too, and the things that stay with you are not just Jack. It's those tiny moments. It's the twins in the corridor, the dead kids, the little glimpses you get, the creepy bartender that you mentioned, all of the ghosts of the hotel that are quite vivid characters and creepy ones too.
And that's another thing that a lot of people have played on again since The Shining.
Yeah, massively.
Lots of things like that. I mean, they had the whole thing like that with American Horror Story, based a lot of their ghost type things on situations like that.
Yeah, massively so, haven't they? Yeah. That's been hugely influential. I quite like the Amityville Horror. I always thought the Amityville Horror the first, actually the remake's quite good. But the original Amityville Horror, I think, is a good one. It's one of the films that actually answers the question of, well, couldn't they just move out? Because the whole point is, they're there and it's about how hard it is to get a mortgage and this was a bargain and that we're kind of screwed and we have to stay here, I think that's done quite well. There's even a scene where the money goes missing. They have an envelope of money, and one of the things that the house does is it makes the money vanish, which is your worst nightmare when you're already struggling. Like, oh, fuck. So I think those, things are tight economically. Haunted house films work quite well. And that also has a few great moments. The rocking chair and the moment where the imaginary friend that his daughter's got seems to be a real ghost. That's a good one. Poltergeist. That's
obviously, that's got to come up.
Yeah, which has some really good moments too. I was always quite frightened by stories of poltergeist. The idea that these were much more violent ghosts, that they would angry spirits that would potentially chuck knives at you. Was freakier than just a kind of spectral thing floating around. I mean, some fantastic ones. What about the Del Toro ones? Have you seen The Devil's Backbone?
I still haven't seen it. Damn it.
That's a good one. Yes, that's a great one to start with. He returns to this stuff. Crimson Peak is a proper old-fashioned gothic ghost story, which I quite like, which he did, quite recently, several years after The Devil's Backbone, which is much more quiet and small scale. and that does get away with CGI ghosts, which is usually a pet hate, but I think Del Toro gets away with them in Crimson Peak, which is
No, that's another one I still need to watch. Sorry, they're on my list.
yeah, man, check them out. Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll have a proper Del Toro chinwag. We've got to factor him in. He's such a legend. He's got a new film out next year as well. So yeah. Oh, and so where do you stand on the J horror, the Japanese horror, which obviously was a huge thing and mostly was modern set ghost stories?
Yeah, I'm not a fan because of the jump scares, overly flamboyantness of it all. It doesn't really do a lot for me.
Sure. Yeah, and that's a shame because a lot of them became that. The Japanese Grudge movies are the biggest one, I suppose, of that original run that are entirely based on a small boy screeching like a cat every 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I think I've always ruined it for myself by watching the US remakes of them before actually watching the actual original origin films themselves.
Yeah,
I'd probably have a little bit more respect for them if I had.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, they totally trashed it. I mean, the Japanese Grudge is very jumpy, but the original Japanese Ring movies are very quiet, and the occasional jump scares in those stand out because they're part of this very slow, very kind of subdued, I suppose, almost realistic ghost story. And then the US version of The Ring has big old scares involving deers and horses and things.
Yeah, doesn't really
and they totally messed
appeal.
it up.
Yeah.
But the best of those, the bit like the very first Ring in Japan, the best of those are really great ghost stories. It's a shame that obviously they became popular, so they made loads of them, and then the US versions totally
ruined
the subtlety,
yeah.
which is a shame. But yeah.
I've always been a fan of the more kind of folklore-y type witchcrafty ghost things, like The Witch.
Oh, The Witch is fantastic, yeah.
And The
That's
Ritual,
sensational.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, The Ritual's really great, isn't it? Great atmosphere-driven things.
Yeah, I think any kind of period set ghost story has that more of a creepy edge to it.
Yeah.
In The Witch.
Yeah,
which goes
definitely.
way back.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's true also of Devil's Backbone and a whole bunch of others.
Cool.
And the ones we were talking about just now, of course.
Even the Dickens movies, Christmas Carol, that it's this kind of time of year, one of the most popular Christmas films or Christmas stories is a ghost story.
Yeah.
I really like it. I don't get tired of watching Christmas Carol movies. There's so many different ones.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But that kind of stuff drilled into us. Well, it was at school. I think we, forced to watch it every bloody year at school.
Yeah, the Tales of the Supernatural. Yeah, very much the same kind of thing, and that's in line with
a moral story at the end as well.
Yeah, but a chilly path to get there, for sure. And
some
so
of them
many
done really well. Yeah.
There's a whole bunch, isn't there? Like there's the weird musical with Albert Finney, The Christmas Carol, which I quite like.
And there's
Scrooge with Bill Murray, which actually has some great ghosts in it. The design of those is fantastic.
Yeah, it's very much like Ghostbusters.
Yeah, you see, I always liked Scrooge better than Ghost. I always thought it was
really
one I'm like much more. Yeah, and it stands up. Like I've watched Scrooge.
It's brilliant so many times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched it last year, and I've rewatched Ghostbusters, and I'm like, yeah, this is a bit flat. But Scrooged, I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
And so much, obviously, he's great, but so much of it is about how fantastic the ghosts are.
Yeah.
And yeah, an amazing cast. Everyone's in Scrooged. Carol Kane is that annoying, shrill guy that whacks him over the head. Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, that's the thing that will be remade endlessly. There'll never not be a new version of Christmas Carol.
Let's hope not.
Because it fits with everything. What about the on the other end of the scale, I do like Paranormal Activity, which is
Oh
really,
yeah.
which is no different. I mean, it's so many of these ghost stories, like The Woman in Black, are first person ghost stories, and that's the same thing. It's just that the format is changed, so it's still a first person thing because it's their point of view with the cameras and stuff. But I like that, especially the first one. I think worked really well.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely that for me it was along the same kind of lines as Blair Witch.
Yeah, yeah,
Proper actual holy fuck moments.
yeah, absolutely. There certainly is, and it's very much about the build up, isn't it? Which we said earlier for The Woman in Black, The Good Woman in Black, which is so good at that. My favourite one, I think, that came after that, Paranormal Activity led to loads of others, but is Lake Mungo. Did you ever get around to watching Lake Mungo?
Yes, you did lend me Lake Mungo.
I think that's amazing. That's a
Yeah,
heartbreaking one as well.
that was really really creepy, proper
Yeah,
creepy, and like not a nice quiet normal type thing with just this very creepy undertones.
yeah, and the great use of the kind of faked documentary format is great because The Woman in Black works so well because it's Arthur telling the story of what happened to him, and that's the same thing. It's just a modern version of it. Um, but the revelation of Lake Mungo, where you realise that she was being haunted by the fact that she was going to die very soon. I always thought it was one of the most creepy and sad things that I've seen. Yeah, that's a really great one. I think the quieter the better generally. They remade The Haunting. Did you ever watch the remake of The Haunting in the late 90s?
No.
Which was worth a look because it's kind of bonkers. But the original Haunting is very much from the 60s, very much black and white and very quiet. The biggest scares are off camera, is a noise or something, or there's a classic moment where someone says, well, whose hand was I holding? Where there's a real realization that it wasn't the person they thought there was in the room with them. And the remake has like loads of bang whiz stuff and Catherine Zeta-Jones and Owen Wilson getting his head cut off. Yeah, it's terrible, but the remake is kind of another one that's worth watching for how you can totally mess up a potentially spooky tale.
Yeah, just throw quite a lot of big actors at it.
Loads of special effects and stuff, which they couldn't have done in the original, but wouldn't have wanted to. The Changeling, that's another great one.
Yeah,
very spooky again. In this case, a kind of grisly aging man that we see getting very scared by stuff going on again due to a dead child, which I think is a recurring thing in these things, which you don't get a lot otherwise. Yeah, there's an awful lot of great ghost stories, man. And the Flanagan stuff, we mentioned Flanagan earlier, who I think did a really good job with his two ghost story series, Haunting of Hill House and Bly Manor. Did you like both of those? I can't remember.
I still didn't make it through Bly Manor.
Ah, yes, okay. Yeah.
But I loved Hill House. Hill House was amazing.
Yeah, Hill House was really good.
And Midnight Mass.
Ah, Midnight Mass is fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's the best guy to do this kind of stuff. He did two early films of his, which was Oculus, which is really good. If you've not seen that, that's really good. The kind of modern version of the Haunted Mirror story. That's really good, actually. And Absentia was kind of a ghost story, which he did early on. But Haunting of Hill House worked really well because, again, it's very quiet. There was the occasional scare, which worked really well because it came out of nowhere and didn't just rely on a massive orchestra. And Bly Manor is not as good, but it does have at least one great episode, which it's not a bad hit rate, I suppose, out of however many it was. Yeah, maybe he's the guy that will make the next great movie ghost story.
Yeah, it's certainly one to keep in mind for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's probably kind of where we're at with ghost stories. I think we've covered quite a few of them. Obviously, there's tons more. You can always let us know if you have any favourite ones of your own. But yeah, it is the season for that kind of thing. But But next time, Sarah, we've got something totally different. Would you believe? Yes, next time.
Not ghosty at all.
No ghost next time. Next year, in fact. New month, new podcast, new year.
Oh yes.
It's the release in January of the new Scream movie, Scream 5, which is called Scream. So that's cool.
Not confusing at all.
No, not at all. So we'll be using that as an excuse to rummage through the original Scream movies.
Hooray! And hopefully I've seen the new one in time.
Yes, we'll try our best to watch the new one so that we can shoehorn it in with the others. But if not, of course, there's still 4 movies to talk about. We won't bother with the TV series because life's too short. But we'll be talking about the Scream films, which are now extraordinarily old. In fact, this year was the 25th anniversary of the first Scream movie.
Good Lord.
Yeah, that's terrible news, isn't it?
It is. So depressing.
Yeah, very, very
But it's
sad.
exciting. Scream movies are always a lot of fun.
Yes. And the new one that's good, the trailers dropped, it is out there, I think I saw it when I watched Halloween Kills, and it looks fun. Everyone's back, more or less. And looks like they've got some new twists on it. So we shall see. But yes, so we'll be talking Scream movies in January, which goes live on what date, Sarah? The January the something? Some outrageous late date.
The 28th or something. So, you've got a while to digest your Christmas dinner and get your tree down.
Yes.
Think of some New Year's resolutions.
All the usual stuff. Find a place for Nan's body. Yeah. There's a lot to do over Christmas. But yeah, that's probably it, Sarah. I think we've we've come to the natural end. Obviously, everyone that's listening, have a nice Christmas. If you've heard this before Christmas, and if not, if you've heard it next year, then hope it was good.
Yeah.
And all that. So yeah, it's a good night from me, I think, Sarah, and
the same for me. Have a good Christmas, drink lots, and be merry.
Oh, merry. Yes, indeed. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.